Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, I walk around the neighborhood, feeling blessed.
Alrighty, today we're going to take a look at some data that is provided for some different situations, and we're going to look at how we could put that data into different data displays and try and draw some conclusions about that data. So go ahead and jot this down, comparing distributions 8.1.2. I'm going to jump right into it. This is going to require a little bit of work today. Practice creating frequency tables and histograms and box plots. So you'll be pausing the video a bit. I'm going to be working along with you. I'll be pausing the video a bit and then filling things in as we go. So let's get started. In lesson 8.1.1, you compared the results of two different methods of measuring to answer the question, which measuring tool was more precise? Today you will continue to develop your methods for comparing two data distributions. Okay, so I'll read through this with you. Josh is just starting a round of golf. The first hole is 130 yards long. He needs to decide which club to use for his first shot. He has kept careful records about how close his first shots came to the hole, all from this same distance. His records include data from two different clubs. One of the clubs is a wedge. I'm assuming that's either a sand wedge or pitching wedge for those of you that are golfers, and an 8-iron. Okay, so with the wedge, he's used a wedge 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, and these are the scores, or the distances that he was away from the hole after the ball came to rest on the green. And then the 8-iron, these are the shots here. Now, I would like to just mention one thing. I spent a lot of time golfing when I was younger. I worked at a golf course for like 6 to 8 years. And I would like to point this out. That's a hole-in-one. And if you're a golfer and you used a wedge to hit a hole-in-one on a par 3 hole, you're never using any other golf club for the rest of your life. That is the only club you're ever going to use on that hole again. So why he would be using his 8-iron, unless, of course, this hole, if there's a lot of wind on the hole, I suppose. But I don't know. Just seems weird that he would use those two. But I digress. There's no real reason to complain about that. Let's just go ahead and get started. So when we're using a frequency table, we're going to do one for the wedge. This will be for the wedge. And this one will be for the 8-iron. And I'm going to probably just break these down into the 3 categories. All of them that were in the 0 to 9 range, in the 10 to 19 range, and then the 20 to 29 range. So here is going to be our intervals for the wedge, and you've got your 0 to 9, you've got your 10 to 19, and you've got your 20 to 29 interval. For the sand wedge, we're going to use the exact same intervals. So we have our 0 to 9, we've got our 10 to 19, and we've got our 20 to 29. And this middle section, that's for the tally. And then this is just what the actual number is. I'll put in the word count there. Here, same thing, we're going to tally as we go. And then what is our total count, our totals? So looking at the wedges, looks like we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then you got a 15 right there. You got a 25 here. You got a 5 here. That goes in here. And then you got the 22. So we've got 7, 1, and 2. Now let's do the exact same thing for our 8-iron. Looks like we got 1, 2, 3 of them in here in the 10 to 19 range. You got 1, 2 in the 0 to 9 range. You got an 11 that goes here. And then you got 5 and 7 that go up here. And you've got the 10 and the 13. You've got the 8. You've got the 10 and the 11. And you've got the 20. So I think it's always a good idea whenever you're working with data to make sure you've got every number represented. I should have 10 of them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And here, what do I have? 5, 8, and 1. Looks like I've got a total of 14 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All right, so if I were to just look at these intervals, what am I noticing here? 7 out of 10, which is 70% of my shots, were within 10 yards. This looks like it's 1 out of 10, so it's going to be 10% of my shots is within 10 to 20 yards, and then 20%. So the wedge, while you have 70% of these shots are within 30 feet or 10 yards of the hole, you still had some, you weren't real consistent. You had some really bad shots as well. I mean, this one is 25. That's like 75 feet away from the hole. That's, how do you even hit a shot that bad with your wedge? I don't know, but I suppose you can. Let's take a look at these guys. 5 out of 14. This is 8 out of 14. And this is 1 out of 14. So I'm going to use calculator for that one. 5 divided by 14 gives me, that's like 30, call that 36%. And then 8 divided by 14, we'll call that 57%. And then 1 out of 14, that's probably going to be like 7%, I think. 1 divided by 14, yeah, 7%. All right, so which club are you using just looking at the percents? This is kind of 93% of your shots were within, I mean, you could almost say 100% of the shots were within 20 yards of there if you include this one and there. So they didn't have any really totally errant shots. That looks like definitely an outlier, although you got this one as well. All right. So that was the first part. Now the second part is for us to create a histogram and a box plot from this. So these are our bin widths. So I'm going to create a counting intervals, counting by tens on each one of the of my coordinate grids to create a histogram, and then we'll figure out what our box plot's going to look like. And I think we'll probably just stop with this. This is taking a good long time to do this, and you're getting the basic idea. So maybe we won't go through and do some of the other problems. All right, so what do we have? First of all, I'm going to pause this, and I'll come back to you. This is going to be the one for our wedge. So where you should start is create a coordinate grid, and let's see, this will be 10, call this 20, and this one will be 30. And then these are our frequencies. And what do we need to get up to? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is 10, and this is 5. All right, go ahead, and I'm going to pause. You go ahead and pause as well, and when you come back, you'll see what my histogram looks like, and hopefully it matches yours. All right, so this is the box plot for the wedge. In our intervals, within 10 yards of the hole, there were 7 different shots that fit into there. There was only 1 shot between 10 and 20, and then 2 shots between 20 and 30. You can clearly see that the shots in the wedge are skewed towards 0. Many more of them in the closer regions than the farther away regions. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to do the histogram for the 8-iron and then come back. Okay, now take a look at the histogram for the 8-iron. You can see where with the wedge, most of the shots were clustered toward the hole. You know, you had 7 out of the 10, 70% of them were within 10 yards. Here, it looks like our average shot is in the 10 to 20 yard range. So this does not appear to be the more accurate based on the histogram, since more fall in here. So the second part of this was to create a box plot. And so I'm going to pause again, and I'm going to create the box plot from each one of them. Now remember, when you do the box plot, you've got to take each one of the individual numbers and put them in order from least to greatest. Once they're in order from least to greatest, then you can find the minimum, the maximum, the median, and the two quartiles and plot them on a number line. And I'm going to use this exact same number line here. I'm going to reference this number line for the box plot. I'm going to put the box plot right above here to see where our interquartile range lies. So you go ahead, do the exact same thing, and see if yours ends up looking similar to mine. All right, welcome back. So looking at the box plots for both the wedge and the 8-iron, I did the wedge in blue, and I put all the numbers in order from least to greatest. There's a total of 10 of them. The minimum is 0, the maximum is 25. The median is in the middle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These two are the two numbers in the middle. So the halfway point between 3 and 5 is 4. And then we take all the numbers that are less than the median. Let me go ahead and do this. So everything less than 4, and that makes the 2 the first quartile. And everything greater than 4 would mean that 15 would be the upper quartile. So we're going to plot each one of these against the number line. So this is where 0 is on the number line. This is where the 2 is on the number line, because we're counting by 2s to get to 10 here. The 4 would be here. The 15 is right here in the middle of the 10 and the 20, and then the 25 once again right here. So you can see a little half, 50% of his shots were within 4 yards of the hole, but the other 50% were kind of bad shots. So not as much consistency happening here using the wedge. Now let's switch to the 8-iron. And so here are the 14 numbers ordered from least to greatest. The minimum is 3, the maximum is 20. The number in the middle is right here, so that's going to be 10.5. And then you take everything less than your median, and it looks like there's there's just the number 8 right here. That's the number in the middle there. So that's your first quartile. And everything greater than your median, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the one in the middle there is the 12. So that's our upper quartile. So when I reference that against our histogram's number line, the 3 would go right around here. The 8 is here. 10.5 is a little bit more than 10, and then 12 goes here, and then the 20 goes here. So what are we noticing about the differences between these two clubs? Let's take a look at some of the questions that we're going to answer on the next page, problem number 20, and see if we'll get a definitive answer on which club we should advise Josh to use. So it's important to consider the spread of the data as it is to consider the center when comparing the data sets. You'll notice the center here, his average shot with the 8-iron was 10.5 yards from the hole, where his average shot was 4 yards from the hole. So I think if you were going to give advice to Josh, wouldn't you think using the wedge would be better? I would think so. But now let's look at it a slightly different way. Calculate the interquartile range for each club in the previous problem. With which club is Josh more consistent? So remember, the interquartile range is the club, or is the box in the middle. So for the wedge, the IQR was equal to how much? It was 15 minus 2. That's 13 yards. And for the 8-iron, I should have color coordinated those a little bit better, whatever. The 8-iron, your IQR was only from 8 to 12, that was only 4 yards. So if Josh decided to use the 8-iron, he would typically expect to hit the ball so that it lands between 8 and 12 yards from the hole. This is indicated by the box on the box plot display and corresponds with the IQR. If Josh decided to use the wedge, what is a typical interval of distance from the hole he would expect to land? The typical interval for this would be that 8 to 12 yards. So it'd be like a 4-yard interval. So now, if he has a consistency of typically about 4 yards plus or minus from his average with an 8 iron, but 13 yards plus or minus from his average with the wedge, which one is more consistent? It looks like the 8 iron is more consistent. So do you wish to modify your advice? And I'm stubborn. I'm a golfer. I'm saying, you know what? I do like the fact that more of his shots were consistent here, but can't get over the 0, a hole-in-one with the wedge, and 50% of his shots are within 4 yards of the hole. Whereas here, 50% of the shots are between 3 and 10.5 yards from the hole. So I'm going with the 8 iron. No, I'm not. I'm going with the wedge, just based on how close you get half of the time and the fact that you got a hole-in-one there. That's my advice. So, different data displays can show you different pieces of information. The box plot shows you the spread. The histogram shows you the frequencies. You could just use a frequency table to get some percents, and all of them can be used to help you draw your conclusions about the data. In this case, I'm going with the wedge. All right. So as you do your homework, be prepared to take data and to put that data into different data displays, either frequency tables, stem and leaf plots, histograms, or box plots. And you need to know what you're looking at when you're looking at each one of those data displays and how you can interpret the data. We'll just keep practicing it. And this is going to be a big part of the Chapter 8 test that we're going to be taking at some point in the future. Have we already taken one? I can't remember. I don't think we have yet. All right. Good luck with your homework tonight, and we'll talk to you soon tomorrow with the corrections to the homework. Bye.
Hey, feeling